I've talked about the culture war, of which we're in the middle of one and it's heating up. We're going after religious men who simply want to protect the innocent's life from being ended. We're going after families. We are going after children. Uh, all of these things are taking place in this culture war. The left would have you say that the far right are extremists who are trying to harm children, who are trying to damage children, and that I just don't see evidence of that. And here's why I say that. Beside me, if you're watching the video, you'll see footage of another Pride event that took place in Chattanooga that is absolutely terrifying. This was an all ages event, all ages. Let me describe to you, for those of you not watching, and I would encourage you to go find this on YouTube and to watch this segment because you have to see it to understand it. So this is another drag show for all ages, of which the right has been very, very vocal in saying that this is wrong, that this is sexualizing children. And the left has said that it's not. Now, on this, you see to the right, you'll see a man dressed as a woman spreading his legs in front of children in a manner that is, there's no other way to describe it than it is a sexually provocative stance. Do people dance like this all the time? Yeah, they do. Do they do it in front of children in these clothes? No, they don't. Because it's illegal. It's indecent behavior, indecent exposure in front of minors. But on the left is where there's a footage that it's on loop right now that is incredibly horrifying. There is a man, again, dressed as a woman in this drag show as a mermaid, as a female mermaid. He has a girl, maybe 3 or 4, rubbing his crotch. Now, you watch the video, the child is obviously fascinated with the sequins of his mermaid outfit. But any adult would have moved the child's hand. Any respectable, decent human being would have said, no, don't touch that. Because it's wrong to have a minor rubbing your crotch. Look at this. You cannot tell me that that is not wrong. We are in the middle of a culture war. We are in the middle of a war for right and wrong. So far, it has not turned violent as far as I can tell. But it is a war nonetheless. This is a war of ideals, a war of thoughts, a war of beliefs. This is a war that I am afraid we are losing. And here's why. Remember the story that I told you last week about Vanderbilt and the mutilation that they were proudly doing in the name of profit to minors, to people as young as 13, where they are surgically removing the breasts of teenage girls, where they are surgically removing the penises of teenage boys. Again, I have gone over the damage that this is and does to people. The fact that for the rest of this person's life that has had this bottom surgery, that they will live in a life of pain and misery and in repeated infections. They will constantly need to insert objects into this fake canal that has been created by the inverse structure of the penis to keep the skin from sealing itself, because the body knows that it is a gaping wound that needs to be healed. We're mutilating people in the name of inclusivity. Well, now we're in trouble, because guess what? The federal government has decided that they're going to step in to this, because there's actually been a lot of traction from the political right, winning people's hearts and minds on this understanding of reality, that you should not mutilate children. How is this not obvious to everyone? How is this not clear that we do not mutilate children? That is not a thing we do. Let me read to you what the Department of Health and Human Services says about all of this. HHS notice and guidance on gender-affirming care, civil rights, and patients' privacy. The Department of Health and Human Services stands with transgender and gender nonconforming youth and their families, and the significant majority of expert medical associations, in unequivocally stating that gender-affirming care for minors, when medically appropriate and necessary, improves their physical and mental health. Attempts to restrict, challenge, or falsely characterize this potentially life-saving care as abuse is dangerous. Such attempts block parents from making critical healthcare decisions for their children, create a chilling effect on healthcare providers who are necessary to provide care for these youth, and ultimately negatively impact the health and well-being of transgender and gender nonconforming youth. The HHS Office of Civil Rights will continue working to ensure that transgender and gender nonconforming youth are able to access healthcare free from the burden of discrimination. HHS understands that many families and healthcare providers are facing fear and concerns about attempts to portray gender-affirming care as abuse. To help these families and providers navigate those concerns, HHS is providing additional information on federal civil rights protections and federal health privacy laws that apply to gender-affirming care. As a law enforcement agency, OCR is investigating and, where appropriate, enforcing Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act cases involving discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity in accordance with all applicable law. This means that if people believe they have been discriminated against in a health program or activity that receives financial assistances from HHS, they can file a complaint. So, what does this mean? Well, this means that the federal government is now going to prosecute those people who are attempting to keep children from being butchered. The federal government is going to ensure that for-profit, money-grubbing, greedy hospitals that have done this solely to make money by the millions, the federal government is going to ensure that those people have the ability to continue to butcher children. Now, I've already said that if you're an adult and you want to mutilate your body, so be it. I think you're crazy, but you can do it. I understand that people are suffering with enormous fear and confusion and doubts due to gender dysphoria, due to the break from reality of what their body is versus what their mind wants it to be. I understand that this fear and confusion is great. But what I also understand is that electing to mutilate your body is insane. There is no medical reason to do it. And people will say, well, all the studies say that it saves lives. No, they don't. In all cases where the ability to get hormone replacement or surgery was restricted versus whenever it was less restricted, suicide rates in the transgender community went up when it became less restricted, easier to access. We showed a video clip of a woman who had been told that she should transition into being a man and that she should be mutilated and she should have her breasts removed and she should have a phalloplasty where they carve the skin from your arms and your legs and they try to make a fake non-functioning penis. She was told that this was the best thing for her. This was the only option, or she would commit suicide. She was told that there was no hope outside of this mutilation of her body. And she realized that it was all a lie. That there was no hope in the mutilation of her body. It was never going to make her feel more like a man or more like a woman. It was never going to do anything except mutilate her for the profit of the hospital and the doctors she went to. I know right now that the right is the political right, the conservative right, is pushing to make these surgeries illegal. And someone smarter than me is going to have to put to words how to make it illegal without harming the people who genuinely do need these surgeries. And what I mean by that is this. Teenage girls do not generally need to have their breasts removed. But teenage girls who have breast cancer sometimes do. Those people should be able to have the medically necessary and required surgery to save their life. But here's the thing. Simply mutilating a girl to make her feel better about her appearance is not okay. There's a reason that plastic surgery is not legal for minors. It's not okay. If you're an adult and you decide to mutilate your body, it's your choice. As long as you pay for it, you do it. I won't stop you. This is not okay. To be pushing this belief system, this ideology, this thought process on minors, on kids, on teenagers, it's not okay. And now that the federal government is pushing this and seemingly attempting to make it illegal to protect children, I'm telling you, I'm afraid we're losing the culture war. I'm afraid that unless something changes very quickly, we will have lost the culture war. It's time for the majority of people who are sitting quietly beside, ignoring all of this, saying that I have more important things to do with my life. I'm too busy to worry about this. I don't want to care about politics. I don't need to worry about it. Well, I'm calling on you to worry about it. Because whenever this is finally ended, the people who sat on the sidelines are going to tell their children and their grandchildren why they allowed the greatest atrocity since the Holocaust or slavery to take place, why they allowed it, People often ask, what did Christians do in Nazi Germany during the Holocaust? Many did say it was wrong. Many did try to fight back, and many lost their lives for it. Many lost their freedom for it. You can speak to Corrie ten Boom and her family to that understanding of them trying to fight back against the tyrannical evil of their government. You can look to the people who actively operated the Underground Railroad, knowing that slavery was wrong, the abolitionists in the North who knew that slavery was morally wrong, to the founding fathers who desperately tried to end slavery, so much so that they put into the Constitution when the slave trade had to end. They desperately wanted to go further, but they knew if they did, that they would destroy the country before it even started. So they set a compromise in place that would inevitably end slavery. And then when that did not come to fruition quickly enough, the entire country went to war. And thousands, hundreds of thousands of people died to end this atrocity of slavery in the United States. So what are you going to tell your kids and your grandkids you did to help end this atrocity? What are you going to tell them you did to stop this insanity? Because you're going to tell them something. And I sure hope it's not telling them that you did nothing because you were too busy and life was too easy. It didn't cross your radar. It wasn't important to you. Because it better get important real fast.